Chelsey and the Green Haired Kid, Chapter 4. The Bionic bus always drops me off at home about 4 o'clock. It's a special bus that runs around the Simon College campus and the rest of the town to carry handicapped people to school and work. It's pretty neat and it gives me a lot of freedom that I wouldn't have otherwise. I can go downtown to the movies or out to the shopping center or to the public library, all without needing anyone to chauffeur me. The hydraulic lift set me smack on the curb in front of my house, and I waved goodbye to Oscar, my favorite driver. See you tomorrow, Chelsey, he called out, and waved with his big cigar balanced between two fingers. I have never seen Oscar smoke the smelly old thing, but he always had one unlit in his hands. I wheeled around to the back of the house and up the ramp my dad built to our screened in porch. I pulled out the key dangling on a long chain around my neck and I let myself into the kitchen. My mom teaches voice in the music department at Simpson College and was having to go back to school in the evenings to rehearse for a one act opera. Even when she's not in rehearsal, she doesn't have much time to cook, so I usually get dinner going. I started cooking a couple of years ago to prove to my mom that I can maneuver around the house in the blue streak. And at first, she was afraid I'd burn myself on the oven door or drop something hot into my lap, but I showed her and I could handle it, and now I do a lot of the cooking. This time I started preparing a fish dinner. Just as I slid the cod into the oven, my dad emerged from his office in the basement. Finish your book yet? I asked. No, maybe tomorrow, he said, scratching his head and yawning. I didn't hear you come in. Dad, you never hear anything when you're working, especially towards the end of the book. I said, really? He looked surprised and blinked several times. His eyes were adjusting to natural light after having been under fluorescent most of the day. Sure, I said. Amy and I always know when you're close to the end of the novel. We can make as much noise as we want because you'll never hear it anyway. I paused. Where is she anyway? Amy? Oh, she ran in a while ago and said she was playing with a friend till dinner. Said she'd be home before 5. Amy is my 7-year-old sister. Half the time she's a pain, and the other half we're buddies. I never know what to expect from her. I guess she's just immature. By the time 5 o'clock rolled around, my fish and wild rice were done and Amy and Mom had arrived. Mom and I made salads, and we all sat down for supper. Did you finish your novel, Richard? Asked my mother, passing the salad dressing. Just a few days left, maybe by Thursday, Dad said. Care to celebrate? Why don't we all go out for dinner when it's finished? Great, Mom said. I don't have to be at the rehearsal Thursday night. The chorus is having a marathon workout, and the principal's singers get the night off. Amazing, my father said with a smile. Pass the rice, will you, Jenny? You know that boy I saw fall from the bleachers at the game Friday night? I piped up. Paula said he died at the hospital. Mom shook her head. What a tragedy. Think what his family is going through right now. I hadn't told them was pushed. I figured they just think I was letting my imagination run away with me. Or worse, they didn't believe me and decided I shouldn't go to the basketball games alone anymore. And after all, as Detective Evans had pointed out, I didn't actually see him pushed. I only saw the way he jerked backwards and then the dark haired guy who looked over the rail at me. And besides, my parents are people who tend to believe the best about people instead of the worst. They wouldn't want to believe that a murder was committed at a Lincoln High School game, much less that I saw it happen. His name was Jerry Fields, I said. He worked at Max making deliveries. And you were the only person who saw him fall? Asked my mother. Uh-huh. I nodded, finishing my last bite of wild rice. And you talked to the police about it? Asked my mother. And told them everything? Yes, I said. I had told the police everything. They just didn't believe me when I told them Jerry was murdered. Time has passed to a new scene. For the next several days, I didn't see Jack, but I asked around about him. And I thought maybe I'd learn something that would help me figure out why he might lie about not seeing Jerry fall. I also wanted to know why he cut off the conversation as soon as I began talking or asking him questions about Jerry's death. It could be that Jack was just like those people in big cities you hear about who watch someone being beaten or robbed or do something or do nothing about it. They just don't want to get involved. Maybe Jack just didn't want to get involved. Or maybe Jack knew more than he was saying about Jerry and the killer. I didn't want to think about that. Jack seemed a little strange, but not evil. And I was sure he didn't have anything to do with the murder. At least, I hoped he didn't. I didn't want the kids to think I had a crush on him or anything, so I was careful about school. I'm sorry, let me say that again, students. So I was careful around school about how I brought up the subject of Jack Smith. I'd say as nonchalantly as possible, "Hey, have you seen that weird kid with the green hair?" When they said, "Yeah, pretty wild," or something like that, I'd say, "Who is he anyway? Do you know anything about him?" I was careful to wrinkle up my nose a little as if I thought he was this very strange person. None of the kids could tell me anything except that he came to town about 2 weeks ago. At the end of the third school day, as I slammed my locker door closed, I decided to give up. I'd learned nothing, and asking any more questions would certainly make the kids believe I was madly in love, which of course I wasn't. I wheeled down the hall and out the door to wait for the bionic bus. The sun was shining brightly that afternoon. All the snow from the storm had melted away, and despite a cool breeze, it felt warm next to the building. And I pulled up beside the wall to wait. The bus usually picks up about 15 minutes after the last bell rings, and I enjoyed the wait when the I enjoy the wait when the weather's nice. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw something move, and I turned to see what it was. Jack was walking toward me, but not with that cool manner I'd seen before, with his hands thrust into his pockets. This time, his jaw was set and his eyes looked deadly serious. He stopped right in front of me. "I hear you've been asking around about me," he said, with not a glimmer of a smiling eyes I'd seen before. "So?" I shrugged, trying to act unruffled. His eyes locked into mine, but not like a snake charmer this time, more like a snake. "Chelsey," he said, "you don't want to know about me." "Why not?" I asked. "Because I'm trouble." His eyes never left mine. "So who's going to help me figure out what happened to Jerry Fields?" I asked, staring right back. There was that stiffening again when I mentioned the dead boy. "That's why I'm telling you to stay away from me," he said. "You're good. You probably always do the right thing. Most people aren't like that, you know." "But, and forget about Jerry's death," he said, lowering his voice, but hissing through his teeth. "You don't know what you're getting into." "What am I getting into?" I asked. "Just stay away," he said angrily. "Just stay away, or you'll get yourself in deep trouble. I can promise you that." And with that, he turned abruptly and strode off around the side of the school.